Okay, welcome back, everyone. It's week 5. Oh, not week 5. Week 1 of Web Fundamentals, day 5. We are going to go over JavaScript objects, what those are, and an introduction into the DOM. What is the DOM? We'll find out. And then in the afternoon, this afternoon, we'll have a trivia group quiz that we'll do together. And the end of the day challenges are loop challenges, this practice assignment, and FizzBuzz for the practice assignment. So we used to, on this day, cover all of JavaScript, everything that you guys had previously covered in programming basics. So today is not going to be too much of a heavy load of learning, but we are going to try to learn something here valuable and worth learning. So let's go over what that is. We're going to be going over the concept of JavaScript objects. Okay, so the content for today's lecture, I will be getting from the platform. Okay, it's in the JavaScripts tab under week 1, day 2. So I'll be going over this information here. I'll be referencing it, but before we do that, let me share my screen, and here we are, black screen. So JS objects. Okay, who can tell me what an object is and what its use is? Anyone? Doesn't matter if the answer isn't completely on point, but we need some feedback here. Who knows already what an object is?
It has data and methods, and it represents an object.
Okay. Stores data. That was the first thing you said. Okay, so stores data. JavaScript objects, let's start with that. It stores data, but don't we have other things that store data? Don't variables store data? Didn't we establish that those carry information and that there's other types of, doesn't an array carry information? It stores lots of data, right? So how is an object, if an array stores data like this, say var r equals 0, 1, 2, 3, right? This is an array. This is data, carries these numbers, and it carries them and these indexes, stores it 0, 1, 2, 3, right? Those are the index values. Here's the values at these indexes. Same as the index itself, right? It stores data and it stores it by index, right? So what a JavaScript object is a way to store it's a non-primitive data type, just like this here, just like an array can carry, an array can carry a string. It can hold a number. It can hold a Boolean value, okay? This is a non-primitive data type, which means that it's not simple, right? A simple, it would be a Boolean or a number or a string in and of itself. But if a certain data like this here, like this array here that carries different types of data, that's a non-primitive data type. So JavaScript object is like an array in that it's a non-primitive data type, and it stores multiple values of data, but it's different in how it carries that information. Okay, so let's find out how. So JavaScript objects. So it holds data, non-primitive, means it's not just a simple okay. And we need to establish what it looks like. What is an object and how it's created, how it's perceived, how it carries data. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. Let's create an object together. Okay, so I'm going to create one here called I'm going to start with the keyword var. All right, so it is going to be stored in a variable. And I want to say I'm going to call it Scooby-Doo. Okay. If this is just going to hold information related to Scooby-Doo. Okay. So we're going to have Scooby-Doo, and the way that we write an object, okay, is by creating curly bracket. Okay. So I'm going to open and close the curly bracket over here. This is our object. This is the opening and closing of our object. Now, inside it needs to contain some data because right now it's an empty object, but this is just an object relating to the information of Scooby-Doo. All right, so let's go ahead and create some information here that we can access. We'll say first name, and oops, what should have done there is create 2 dots, okay? 2 giant colon dots, okay? And the first name we'll say is Scooby. And then we'll create a value for last name. Okay. So we can already tell how this looks different than an array. The similarity here is that we have brackets that are open and close it, but this time these are curly brackets instead of just regular brackets. The items are separated by a comma here. Okay, so this here is a comma. So this is a comma, separates items. Okay, and the difference with an object, the difference between an object and an array is how it stores the data. In an array, when we call, let's say, array at index 0, we would know that's going to be the first item in the array. So we call that everything is indexed by a number in the array. Now, in an object, everything is saved by its key. So we have key value pairs. Okay, so let's highlight what these are. Key value pairs. So here's the key. And here's the value. instead of having an index as the place in the array, now we have the key holding the value by that key name. Okay, so if we want to access this object here, Scooby-Doo. Okay, we want to access Scooby-Doo here. And we want specific information related to Scooby-Doo, specifically Scooby-Doo's first name. Okay, we want to pull this data here that says Scooby. So previously with an array, we would have accessed this by saying the array and then bracket at that position in the array. Now, when we want to access information of this object, we are going to say, let's console log it here below. So I'll say, after this object here, console.log. And in here, we want to access just this information, Scooby, right? So we want to log to the console Scooby. So we need to access Scooby-Doo's first name. So we say Scooby-Doo. And then we say dot first name. Okay. That dot is what gives us the access. There. That's what gives us the access to that key. That key holds the value in a string, so it should log Scooby. Okay. So let's drop some feedback here in the chat in a 1 through 10 on how well we're understanding this concept of how to store data in an object through a key value pair separated by a colon. Okay, so that's the other thing here that I didn't mention. Let's go over this real quick now. The key value pair is separated by a colon. Okay. So let's drop a 1 through 10 in the chat. How well we're understanding this concept. Key value pairs separated by a colon inside curly brackets is what makes an object. So nothing is now stored as array objects, well, array values 1 through, or 0 through wherever, infinity. It's not through array values, but objects through key value pairs. I can't actually see the chat. I have to destroy the screen in order to find the chat. Okay, great. So let's look at what the platform says about objects. Okay, so the platform will say the same thing. Look at this object here. Everything's stored as a string on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, there's a string as well. Okay, this is the key on the left and the value on the right. And as we can see here, we can have objects that have keys and values as arrays. So let's go over how to access the values if they are in an array. The value of a key if the value is an array. So let's go over that real quick. So we have bar, let's say we're creating a sandwich. Is it with a T or without a T? CH. I'm doubting myself.
No T.
Oh, you told me right at the okay. Wanted to see me
I
suffer.
had to see what your gut instinct was first before.
I was like, you know what? If it's a witch, it should just be a sandy witch. Wanted to see me fail, Christian. I see now. It's okay. Var sandwich. Okay, so let's have something in this var sandwich. We'll have a key value pair, toppings. And toppings is an array. Toppings on a sandwich? Yeah, like what you put underneath the bread. Okay, so we have like something like this. Salt. I was never a great speller. Now my weaknesses are showing here. Maybe salt, pepper, mustard.
Would toppings have quotations around them?
So I'm creating an object that has a key value pair. This value is an array. And so I'm creating in this array strings that are toppings for the sandwich. And I can create something else in the sandwich, so it makes sense. So let's say meat. We'll just say it's ham. This is just a string. So we have an object here. And toppings, we want to access just the first value of toppings. Okay, so how would we do that? How would we access the first value of toppings? We have lots of toppings. I just want the first value. Okay, so we know we have to access toppings, right? So how do we access toppings?
Sandwich dot toppings with
Okay.
square bracket 0 to access salt.
Okay, there we go. That's it. We say sandwich dot toppings. And then we say at 0. If we have this value at 0, then we're saying whatever's first in this array, I want that one. Of this array toppings, of this object sandwich. Okay. This would give me the result salt. Okay, so let's get some feedback on how well we're understanding how to do this, how to access the value if it's an array, how to access those specific values in the array of an object. Okay, so let's 1 through 10 in the chat, how well we're understanding this concept, how to access the values in an array if they're stored in an object. Okay. So we have objects. The way we access data in the object is by calling the key name. The key name will give us the value. So dot toppings gives us this value here. And at this value 0, that's how we get salt. So, okay, this is another way an object can store data. Okay, there's more ways that objects can work as well. What if we had an array of objects? So we'll say something like this. Var fruit details we have an array. In this array, we have objects. First one we'll say is fruit name. Apple. Color. Red. And then we close the object. And then we can open a new object as well here. I'll just say fruit name. Okay, so here we have an array of objects. So how do we access now this array's first object's fruit name? How do we do something like this? Anyone have any ideas? So I want to console log the first fruit name here in this fruit details array. Who can give me an idea of how to do it? Doesn't matter if it's right. You guys are feeling pretty bold and courageous today, huh? Okay, we got one. Alan says, fruit details at 0 dot fruit name. Okay, so if we wanted to console log apple, we would say fruit details at 0. Okay, this is fruit details. It's 0 is the first object. This one here. This is 0. So we're saying fruit details at 0 dot. So now we're accessing the object's key fruit name. If we do this, we'll get the value. The value is apple. So that's what we would be console logging.
Can you leave this up for a second? Because I'm going to write it down for notes.
Yep.
How do you distinguish between banana fruit name and apple fruit name?
Through
Oh, by the
index value here. This is at fruit details at 0. This is index 0. It's still an array where it has about 0, 1, 2, 3. Now in the array, we're just storing objects. And at that index values, now we say key, because now every index has these keys stored in an object. So we say dot fruit name, we're accessing apple. Okay. So let's give some feedback in the chat. 1 through 10 on how well we understand how to access object values within an array. Okay, great. Fantastic. Okay. Are we good to close this screen out, or do we still need it?
No, I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Carly. All
What
right.
if-
Oh,
I-
go ahead.
I was wondering, what if like there were two objects with the fruit name of apple? Or does that not need to be gone into?
So we have two objects with the fruit name of apple. So let's
I might
let's
be
do that. So we say var fruit details. Open the object. Oh, no, wait, it was an array. Var, oop. It's making squares there. Oh, no, it won't work. Okay, well, let me pull it up on Visual Studio Code. So I have it here. Fruit details. And here's the first object. We have fruit name apple red. And you wanted to make another object in there, right? So let's do that.
Oh, it wouldn't matter because it's still it's indicating the first element in the array. So it wouldn't matter if there was another.
Right. Right. Okay, I'm glad you noticed it. Yeah, because everything's indexed by the array index 0. This is index 0. So if you had another fruit name, if you had another one that was just like this below, this would be at index 1, for example. So if it had one just the same identity, there is still a difference between this one and this one because this one is the first one, which is index 0. Right? This is just an array. And instead, now the values are objects. Okay, good questions. Okay, so let's see how we are on time. Okay, we have 15 minutes left. So that ends the topic on objects. Right now, all we have to know is that it is a way to store values. Okay, you can make a value be even a function. See how this one here says taco info is the key. The value is this function. So when you access this values, this key's value, you're getting a function which console logs taco one's tortilla, taco one's protein, cheese, and toppings. So this here is a function. Okay, now with that, we will move on to the next subject of the day, which is the document object model. That's what DOM stands for, the document object model. Okay, so the first thing we wanted to go over today were objects, what an object is, how it stores data. Now we're going to go over the document object models. Does anyone have any questions pertaining to what we already learned about objects before we move on? If we have no questions, we'll go ahead and move on to the next topic of the day. First thing we want to learn about is objects. Second thing we want to learn about today is the DOM. Okay. Okay, so the document object model. Who can tell me, what that stands for? What does this mean? Can anyone give me a guess as to what this is describing? Or does anyone already know? Yeah.
Describes the structure of a web page.
The structure of a web page. Exactly. Exactly. So each time you visit a web page, you are getting a version of the website that you would have been creating, right? So far we've been creating HTML, CSS. Now we're going to be adding JavaScript soon as a file, okay? And so we have, let's go ahead and create these imaginary files here. We have HTML, CSS, and we have JavaScript here. These are 3 files. Combined together, they can make a view of a web page. All right. The HTML is like the backbone structure that contains all the information. The CSS adds some styling to it. The JavaScript can manipulate the page. The JavaScript can add or take away from the structure of the HTML. Okay, so when we say document object model, it's the structure of the page, of the version of the page that we receive when we visit a web page. Okay, so this would be the HTML page has the model for the page initially when you visit, right? It has the head, it has the body. The body may have a top nav bar. The body may have some other content like the main content of the page and different buttons or things that we access in the page. Okay, so that structure is itself a model of the page. Okay, the objects on the page, such as let's say the nav bar or the body content, that is those are the objects on the page of the document. So it's mainly this HTML document that we're viewing, and the different aspects of that page, the representation of it. And it can change throughout time depending on what the user does. So for example, let's say if the user is on our web page for more than 30 seconds on the page, and a pop-up will show up saying, hey, we noticed you're on our page. Would you like to like subscribe to our newsletter or something, or accept our cookies or something like that. So maybe there's that object, that model changes throughout time because JavaScript is changing it, but mainly this document is the HTML document that gives us the structure of the page, the body, the head. And in the body, there's multiple different things here. There's the, like, let's say nav and the main content. So that structure, that object model, that's what we are going to be accessing now and changing on our page. So let's take a look what this looks like practically. Okay, so we can look at the DOM of any web page now. Let's go to Wikipedia. Okay, so here on this Wikipedia page, if I right-click on the page and I click inspect, this is like opening the hood of the web page. Now it's like opening the hood of your car. Now you get to see the engine. This is behind the scenes of the web page. So I want to see it on my right hand side. So I will click these 3 dots and click dock to the right. Now it's on the right here, and I will unclick this button here. So now you guys should have a view something like this. If you were to right click the page, click inspect now, it should show up on the right. And so now I can see the DOM. I see here this code that I'm seeing on the right, divs, scripts, head. See, this is the body. This is the DOM right here. This is the document object model. When I hover over this body, for example, see how it opens and closes the body? It highlights over the entire page. It makes everything blue because the body is the view of the page that we see. So this is the document object model. Now I've closed the body, so you're not seeing everything inside the body. But now if I open the body, highlight over this div here, this is an A tag. And on the top left of the screen, see it was right here in this area where my mouse is hovering. If I hover over this A tag, it's going to hover over that link there that it's supposed to identify. And it's supposed to say jump to content. This one here, this is the nav bar, vector header container. This one here, if I open this, then I can see inside the head, inside this nav bar. Okay, I'm going to close out this nav bar, but we can see whenever I hover over this div class vector header container, it highlights over the nav bar. So now I'm clicking through items in the DOM, in the document object model, and I'm able to highlight things on my page through highlighting different areas here in the HTML code I received. Okay, just because I delete something in this DOM here that I received doesn't mean it's actually deleted from the source. So if I, for example, open this here, this A tag, and I delete it, it's gone on my version that I received of the web page. Okay, so I didn't actually delete anything on the Wikipedia page, just the version I've received, the copy I've received. So now I'm able to see the DOM, the document object model, and as things change on the page, I will be able to see them see the changes reflected on the DOM as well. And what I mean by that is this. For example, let's look at this Wikipedia page. When I hover over this link here, see where it says independent game? When I hover over independent game, it gives me a link to what the meaning of independent game is. And it creates a div with an image that says an indie game short for independent video. If I hover over another link, for example, point and click adventure game. See that link there? If I hover over that, it's going to give me a little div that defines what point and click adventure game is. It's an adventure game, it's a video game genre in which a player assumes a role for a protagonist. It will take me to a link to an article that defines that. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. Whenever I'm hovering over a link on Wikipedia, it will give me it will create a div on the page exactly where I'm hovering to show me the meaning of what it is that I'm hovering over. And as we create these divs, as we hover over links, we will see that reflected in the DOM as well. So here at the very bottom of the HTML, look just above this closing HTML tag. Whenever I hover over a link, it will create that div there. So I'll hover over independent game. And do you see that div class MWE pop-ups? And it disappears as soon as I unhover over it. But that div is created there. Yeah, I can scroll down a little bit more. And it's created as soon as I hover over something, a div is created at the very bottom. Maybe if I make this text smaller. Yeah. Okay. There it is. That whole div just popped up at the very bottom of the body. Did you guys see that? So now I'm changing the document object model through JavaScript because there's a JavaScript functionality in there that says when you hover over this link, I want you to create a div on the page that has this information that's like that image there, that brown image, and the definition, an indie game short for independent video game. Okay, so now when we create a web page, we're going to be adding JavaScript so that we can control the document object model based on different things that we want. So on hovering over something, now we'll be able to create divs. We'll be able to delete things on our page, change the numbers, change the colors. So now we can have full access to changing our web page through JavaScript. Okay, so that's what I'm introducing today. And on Monday, you'll have a full lecture with Sean on how to do that. Okay, because there's going to be at least 3 JavaScript features that you're going to need to do on your test. And in addition to creating the web page, mimicking the skeleton view of it, and you know, making a mock view, you're going to have to create some JavaScript features, something that we'll show you exactly what we need you to do on the test, but it may be changing something on the page. It definitely will be changing something on the page. So in this instance, it won't be exactly this, but I'm showing you how a div can be created on a page related to whatever content it's supposed to show. In this case, Wikipedia is you know, wired it this way, but a div will pop up if you do something, which is just hover over the link. And so we will now be controlling the DOM, the document object model, through JavaScript. We'll be accessing the document object model through JavaScript. Okay, and that's all I'll be introducing for today's lecture. Okay, just the concept of objects and how the HTML itself is the document object model and how it can change based on the JavaScript file that's linked to it. Okay, and it's represented here on the right when I inspect the console. Okay, so let's give some feedback 1 through 10 on how well we're understanding the concept of the DOM and how we'll be using JavaScript to change the DOM as we create our web pages, allow for functionality to change the DOM. If you hover over this, then it'll do this. If you click here, it will change the page in this way. For example, dark mode, light mode, different features that whatever features you can conceive of that you would see changes on a web page through JavaScript, you'll be able to create that now. Great. Okay, looks like we're understanding. We're all on board. Fantastic. Okay, so let's look over the schedule. We're done with today's lecture. So that means we'll be working on today's assignments. So today it is going to be, let's see, Friday, week 1, day 5. We have these 2 practice assignments, FizzBuzz and loop challenges. We're going to want to go through all this material and do these practice assignments. It'll definitely be helpful. You guys have done programming basics, so now expect all you guys to be able to do the JavaScript required for this one here. Do these practice assignments today, do the reading, and in the afternoon, we'll have a trivia group quiz. Okay, you guys get to compete against each other. And then you have lots of reading to do that you can do before Monday's lecture on JavaScript events and DOM manipulation. Okay, so I will be opening out the groups if we have no more further questions. We'll all be working on our assignments that we're catching up on or getting ahead on. And I will be in the office, Sean's office room, if you guys have any questions. Okay, so if we have no further questions, thank you guys so much for being attentive in today's lecture. We'll go ahead and create the breakout room so you guys can go there and work on assignments. Stop the recording now.